All right. Oh my God, this is fucking awesome. Okay, just a second. How am I?
Are we allowed to swear on your podcast?
Oh, please do. Please do.
Yes, definitely.
We are from Europe, remember?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, no, this is amazing. Oh my God. So we are live on the Albrecht Authors TikTok. How about that? Hello and welcome to another episode of Unboxing Women, where we explore the gender gap in the music and entertainment industry. My name is Dana Rex, and with me is my friend Mike Arose, and we are here to reveal what really goes on behind the scenes. You can listen to us on our YouTube channel and on your favorite podcast platform. And with us today are Mary and Katie Albrecht, and they are an aunt and a niece from the suburbs of Chicago. They wrote a book together about the abuse they and their family went through by the hands of Mary's brother, who is Katie's father, a mentally ill, narcissistic abuser. Both of them being the one picked by him to endure more and get it worse than the others, these women had had enough, and when Katie left years after Mary did, they found each other again and vowed they would have no more secrets. The name of their podcast.
As you can see.
You see how I did that?
It's a very fancy sign.
That was good. We do have it very loudly up here, you know.
So
that was good.
You guys made it your mission to talk about your struggles and history of abuse, to help others, stop taboo. That's what we like.
Yeah.
So this led you to write a book. So tell us just a bit more about, your shared history and how you found each other after all those years.
You want to start? Sure. By the way, she's the aunt, I'm the niece. Yeah, if you guys couldn't tell. You got it backwards.
Well, first of all, thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here.
This is you guys have a really good show. I was listening to a few episodes right before this too, and I think you guys are doing a great job.
Thank you.
So we're from, like you said, we're from the Chicago area, from America. It's nice to talk to people from across the pond and everything. Growing up, when I was growing up, I knew Mary, but I didn't really know her because the relationship she had with my father was so abusive and strained that I only saw her from like a distance. And a couple years ago, so 2015, that being said, we started to get to know each other a little bit more. But then I think the catalyst in our relationship was after my grandma's funeral. I called her for help because my dad was ordering prescription drugs from a drug dealer, and I was fed up with it. I was fed up with all the problems, all the abuse, and all of the sweeping it under the rug. So I called her, kind of a shot in the dark. She thought I was grieving from my grandma's funeral.
Yeah, I was like, "Oh, are you sad tonight?"
Yeah.
Well,
I am, but I also need to vent about this. And I ended up talking to her about it, and she's like, "I absolutely understand." And she started to share from her childhood, and that was kind of like the first moment where we came together as what we are now.
Exactly. Yeah, because she thought that her dad was a raging alcoholic / drug addict. Mm-hmm. But I told her he's been mentally ill since I've known him, which is my entire life. He was 2 years older. So I could tell he was mentally ill by the time I was about 5 and he was 7, long before alcohol, long before drugs and everything like that. Wow. So that was shocking to her because she's like, "Wait, you mean this? You've gone through the same thing?" And I'm like, "Yes." And this is what happens with abuse when you don't break the cycle. It repeats. And so 3 decades later, basically, she was telling my story over again.
Wow.
And we were just tired of it. We're like, why is this guy still torturing all of us? And he wasn't just ordering prescription drugs. He was storming around the house, according to you, and screaming at people.
It was
the day after my mom's funeral, and everybody's sad, and everybody's trying to heal and come together as a family. And he's trying to get $40 out of Katie's mom so he can pay for his illegal drugs, and screaming at people. And Katie was just done. She's like, "I'm so done."
I was done with the pretending like it was fine. Because that was a kind of a trend in our family, is that these blow-ups would happen, and they started to happen more and more towards the end of my dad's life. And then we would just all be like, okay, well, we're going to keep the peace and then push it down. And then pretend that didn't happen. There was never any apologies, even though there was a lot of name calling, there was physical abuse. Like, there was never any of that. And we just had to keep pretending like it was all good. And then that just wasn't the case. And it just was driven me to, I thought I was going to become insane.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Doing it over and over again.
Well, and she ran away from it. I ran away from it when you were 22. I ran away from my home when I was 22. Mm-hmm. Because you just get fed up and you have no other way to control it except for to run away, because nobody will listen to you and nobody will help you or help him, for that matter.
Which is a good point. Yeah, because he needed severe mental help, especially early on, is when it might have been a little bit preventable of all the other effects from it. So we realized we had a lot in common. We both had a Honda Accord when we drove away from our family's house.
I mean, it was just weird.
There was other stuff too, but I can't really remember.
And I ran away to Rhode Island, but she ran away to his abuser 30 years later, but not knowing, or his abusee.
His abusee,
his abusee.
Yeah, you were
like
the abuser.
His victim. But she didn't know I was a victim at that time.
Yeah.
She didn't know it was that deep.
Yeah.
And so it was just interesting how the parallel of the 3 decades later, and we both have the same role in the family, where in my nucleus, I was always like, what's wrong with you people? Why are you accepting this? He's running around, throwing me against the wall, throwing me down the stairs, kicking me, screaming, belligerent. And I'm the bad guy because I'm saying, we need to call the police. I'm the bad guy, and it's the same exact, she's the same role in her family. And her mom, I try to defend her mom, who's still alive. My mom and dad are gone, but my mom is really the one who perpetuated the cycle in her mom. And her mom was just trying to get by, right. So it was just, But anyway, we decided, I was joking because she was down here. I have a fitness studio and my clients are like all my friends. And we were joking around and talking about all the different things that her dad does and he did when I knew him. And they're like, you can't make this shit up, and they're like, this is amazing, you guys should write a book. And I like, yeah, right, we're gonna write a book. And Katie's like, I think we should write a book.
I think we should write a book. And I think we actually should.
And she always wanted to write a book. So we wrote a book about that whole year, from when my mom died till, unfortunately, my brother died 11 and a half months later. But we wrote about that whole 11 and a half months and flashbacks, mostly my flashbacks, because I'm the older one, I have more. And
it brought together the whole story. And I think it was about this person, my dad, but it was also about our relationship and how we came together. And I think that was a big theme throughout all of it, is that when you find someone who validates you, it's like an unbreakable bond, I had given up on the Albrechts and on anybody ever speaking the truth about our family dynamics until she came along. And we actually made the tagline. Our book is called Broken Neck, and it's broken, but neck is spelled N-E-K because my brother's name is Ken. And we would always say, oh, neck is out, when he was acting twisted and backwards. So we'd call him Neck. And then when we were going to name the book, I'm like, it needs to be something like severed neck or twisted neck or whatever. So I put in broken, and that sounds pretty gory. And it came up on my phone in two lines, bro, Ken. And I didn't realize that not only does Ken break us and he's broken, but the word brother is in the word. And the word Ken is in the word. So it became Broken Neck. And then Katie had said that I had become the family she never knew she always wanted.
That's nice.
So our tagline is finding the family you never knew you always wanted.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of symbolism in the title and also in that tagline. Absolutely, yeah.
And then the sweet, I don't know if you can see it, but our cover has somebody sweeping crap under the rug.
Under the rug. Oh yeah. Nice.
So a little background on how we came to, or why we wanted to write the book anyway, and kind of what it's about and stuff. So,
and it was super therapeutic to do so.
It was, yeah.
It's in the form of a memoir, kind of. How? Because you're saying it's flashbacks.
It's definitely a memoir. It's called a memoir, but people say it's more like a psychological thriller because you can't. I mean, this is like 2% of some of the crap that Ken did in his lifetime, you know.
And we wrote it in the first person perspective. So we kind of wrote it more like it reads like a novel almost, but it's true to our memory as we can make it.
So both of you are speaking in the first person, basically.
Yep.
As one.
So you're basically coming along right with us as we tell our story.
Because our relationship unfolds during the story, and we get closer and closer, and more secrets come out, and I start sharing more about things that happened to me, and we even have it so that like sometimes. Like on the 4th of July, we're hearing fireworks and then she's over where she is hearing fireworks, but we wish we could be together, but we're not. So we're kind of like, you know, trying to do this dance toward each other. So one chapter would end and then the other chapter would kind of repeat it, but from their perspective, from the other person's perspective.
There was some overlap there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it was really fun. And we actually started the book before Ken died. And we were a little worried about that because we probably would have gotten shot. Yeah. Or thrown out, you know, off a cliff or something. But
it wouldn't have been pretty.
It just worked out that he died, and we're like, okay, now we know how our book is going to end. And he died on his living room floor, Christmas Day, the first Christmas without my mom.
Mm-hmm. So she left.
Without my mom was dead.
She passed away.
Not her mom. My mom. So her grandma.
Oh, grandmother. Right. Okay, okay.
They get confused because they think I'm the niece.
Right. Yeah. Naturally.
We get this all the time.
But yeah, so the timeline was like 2015. So in January, my grandma passed away, her mom.
Okay.
And then in December, so Christmas that year, my father passed away. So that was kind of sandwiched in between the two deaths with some like flashbacks to the past and everything. But.
And as to how he got this bad. You know, and then we actually got told too that the book is. My brother had just about every level of mental illness you can possibly think of. I mean, he was an addict. He was, you know, had rage. He was a narcissist, a sociopath. You know, manipulative, pathological liar. I mean, you can't. He had all of it. So a lot of people have given us the feedback that they could use this book as a textbook in some of the mental health courses in college and things like that. And so that's when we thought, okay, if we can teach about how mental health goes awry when you don't try to do something, then we could actually help more people. And then Ken's life matters in the positive way. Even though he's dead, at least, you know, because it wouldn't have existed otherwise. And so that's where the podcast started, our podcast, because we're like, now we want to talk about
podcast. Okay.
Yeah. Because I was actually meaning to ask about how you decided to say this is my story to tell, because obviously it is your story to tell because you went through that abuse. But how did you get past that feeling of laying out all the things your dad did or your brother did to you? I mean, before he died, did you think about his privacy as well, or did you just think about how will he react? Because I mean, I personally have family who have gone through mental issues, and I struggle with that concept of not knowing how much is my part to tell.
Right.
Well, I think you struggle more because
I still struggle with it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie about it because it's hard to expose all of the sides of yourself and your family members and everything. Like we said, like it was just easier once he passed that we felt a little bit more comfortable about it. Because we do feel like it is our story. we try to say it like this is just from our perspective of what happened.
Yeah.
And it's, if he was alive, he could have written a book about it too, you know, and said something like separate. But this was our story that we wanted to share from our perspective, and hopefully trying to help ourselves, which it did a lot. This was such a healing process, especially grieving him at the same time.
Yeah, it was really odd.
It was hard
to be grieving your abuser,
but putting it on paper it just really got it out of my head, which made me feel healthier mentally and everything. But it is a struggle sometimes.
And my mom had passed. My dad had bad dementia right after my mom passed, so he never was aware of the book. I have an autistic brother remaining that knows about the book but doesn't want anything to do with it because he didn't think it was fair to write about Ken when he's not here to defend himself. So I don't really have anyone in my nucleus that can really give me a hard time. But Katie is young and still has her 2 siblings and her mom.
Right.
And they were about as supportive as they possibly could be, especially her mom. Were. You know, but it was awkward, her, you know, hearing about her husband. It's, you know, and just hearing what he did to me. And there were some pretty tough times there with your mom. And what I like about my mom and I's relationship now is that it kind of opened up more conversations with her. And I feel like we could finally talk about stuff like freely that we didn't before, because we always had this like image as a family, like we couldn't like act like things were wrong, you know, and having it out there and being just upfront with her before it got published. We gave them like a copy to read, and I said, this is just a point in time of like how I felt in the moment. This is not necessarily how I feel now. And I tried to like really like drill that in. Whether or not it worked, it's up for discussion, you know, like I don't actually know, but I did whatever I could to like brace them for it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
And she was young to go through that. I'm older, and I knew Ken long before any of them did. You know, so I kind of feel like he's my brother. I can say what I want. You know, I grew up with him, you know, so it's like, it is my story, you know, and
it definitely is. Yeah.
And we're using it for good. This is the thing. We're not just sitting here bad mouthing Ken all the time. We're trying to shine a light on, let's talk about mental illness. Let's share about it like we share about our knees being bad or our backs being bad. How about my brother's a sociopath? What can I do? You know, like help me. Whereas when I would do that in the past with the social workers at school or whatever, my mom would come down on the social workers, and then the social workers would like stop talking to me, you know, and they would abandon me. Same with the pastor at their church. You know, the level of cover up was just insane.
Yeah,
you know?
I think it's indeed, you know, you have an abuser, but you also have, let's say, a survivor. And the healing for the survivor is a huge part, talking about it. Not to badmouth anybody, but you have to get it out of your system. You have to find people who have gone through the same thing to, you know, be able to talk to them about it, and just to find common ground, say, oh, I had that too, and just feel that you're not alone. And in that, I think it's true. Yes, you kind of are talking about somebody else, but you're talking mostly about what you went through and what happened to you. So it's it is a fine line though, but I totally get why you should talk about it. I think I
get it too. Yeah. I just thought it was a really interesting kind of thing. It's been something that's been on my mind recently, so
let me just
to ask.
It's not easy, but it's freeing. I am mentally and emotionally healthier than I've been ever in my life since we published this book.
I can say the same.
And she's helped me with that. She's my Dumbledore. What the hell is that thing?
She's Harry Potter, but
I don't know Harry Potter. Yeah, but she said I'm her Dumbledore or something.
Well, yeah, because she was like, I'm like the Harry, and then she was the one that was guiding me through it. Is how I
Yes.
Yeah,
Indeed.
just don't let her die, and
Right.
you can maybe come
I'll
back.
keep her away from Snape. How
Yes,
about that?
exactly.
Did
That's
Dumbledore
perfect.
die?
Well, I didn't tell you.
What?
I meant it the other way around.
Spoiler alert.
But Harry dies too, if that makes you feel better.
Yeah.
This is a very depressing story.
That's another topic.
Was it with this book though that you guys toured the Midwest? Because I read something about you guys touring and speaking at events. How did
Yes,
that
we did,
happen?
yeah.
Yeah, we got asked. It started with a local therapy organization in town called Youth and Family Counseling in Libertyville, Illinois, and they asked us to be spokespeople. And would you be willing to do a book talk, like a book club, but they all pay like $50 to come, and they get a copy of the book and they hear our story, and the money goes to this nonprofit Youth and Family Counseling. And it was a client of mine that asked me that, and I said, okay. And we got like 45 or 50 people.
I think it was like 50 people at our
Wow.
first one.
And they was at my
Which
studio.
felt great, yeah.
And so we made like $2,500 to $3,000 because we had some people that gave that didn't come
For youth and family counseling.
for the youth and family
raised
counseling. And so we're like, okay, wow, we really have a story, and it really mattered to people, and we got a standing ovation, and
Yeah.
they were, and
I was very nervous for that first one because it was, again, you're exposing yourself and the things that you hide away to a crowd now, not just writing it in a book. And but it ended up being very rewarding, because people could empathize, and they also felt like they could share their own stuff too.
and then that's exactly what happens is right after that they start saying, like how you just said, Micah, you've got this situation in your family, and they feel open. And then other people said, would you like to come talk to my book club? Would you like to talk downtown Libertyville? We have something called First Friday where all the businesses are open, when we could be on the street selling our book and telling our story and stuff like that. And so it was kind of like who knows who knows who. And then she's from Wisconsin, and so some of your friends lined some things up.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
We did a couple Barnes and Noble talks. We did a talk at a library. We did from our Barnes and Noble talk. We got someone came to that, and they were part of like a local. Was it government, like the GLMV?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was like a local
the Grace Lake Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah. And they wanted us to do a talk for a bunch of ladies, and then towards the end of the year, I think our biggest event, we did another one for youth and family counseling again. This one was a gala of an audience of about
275
275 people, and we raised
$75,000
for the organization.
Wow.
which
From speaking our story.
and all we did was tell our story, and then it's an auction, and the auctioneer is like, come on, these ladies are brave, come on, can I, anyone bid 100, how about 1,000, how about 1,500, and it just kept going.
Wow.
We raised more money than any other of their speakers ever have.
Yeah, that's what they told us, and it was
So then you start to feel confident, like, okay, I do actually have something to share. I'm not a bad person. Like, nobody said, nobody really said, how dare you say that? And not anybody that, maybe a little bit in the family, but not.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's always going to be one.
It also, like, you just think, like, I mean, I know you know this, but think about all the good that you've created through that is absolutely insane. It's really courageous.
And people are saying that they feel like it's a long therapy session, like they got a year of therapy in one podcast, because you don't know who's listening. You're putting it on recording, so you're really out there,
right.
which is freeing.
But when you're, and you guys know this, but when you're recording, you're just talking to whoever you're talking to. So it's like it's you get to say your story. You get to get it out of your system without the pressure of like 100 eyes on you at once.
Yeah.
That's true. It's a little safer.
It's safer.
Yeah.
I think guests feel really good afterwards.
True,
usually.
because it is, yeah. And then the podcast came about one day at a talk. How did that happen? we just one day said, yeah, we're going to do a podcast too. We had never talked about doing a podcast, but we said it in front of an audience of like 45
and then
people.
you had to.
Do it. And then our people, Shane and Travis, who you met,
Right.
they were filming us there.
Hired them to,
and they're
to,
like, we can make
record
a podcast for you. We're like, okay, we're doing a podcast.
All right, I guess we have to do this now.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And now we've been doing that. We published the book in January of 2019 and started the podcast in September of 2019. And now we just basically do the podcast and a little bit of blogging. Not really as much writing of books or anything like that, but as you guys know, it takes a lot of effort.
Well, that's how I stumbled upon you guys, because of the podcast, and I listened to it and I'm like, oh my God, narcissistic abuse and everything. And I was going kind of through, well, not exactly the same thing, but just similar, I also a survivor of a narcissistic abuser. And then you hear about this stuff and you're like, oh, there's this whole world with a bunch of people in it that have gone through similar things and who are talking about it, and it's so healing. So thank you.
Yeah, is that how you just happen to be searching podcasts, or what, were you searching topics on podcast apps, or what?
I think I was probably searching topics, because I had found one podcast talking about narcissistic abuse, and I just wanted more. I just wanted to hear more and find more people, because it just felt good to not be alone and not be the freak, and not be because obviously in narcissistic abuse you get to, they make you feel like it's you. They make you feel like you're the crazy one. And so it was just out of that sentiment that I just went to look for other people who were saying, no, it's not you, and I wanted to find the most people possible to say, you're not crazy. It's the other guy.
Yeah. And
it's really healing.
It's hard when for 30 years, you've been told by like my mom and then her grandparents, and maybe your mom, just because of parroting my mom and dad, that you are the crazy one. So it's hard to undo that, because you grow up thinking, that it's you that, Mary, you're always seeing the worst in your brother. Mary, leave him alone. He's a very sensitive person and you're egging him on. Mary, it's because you were born that he hates you so much, because you replaced him, that kind of stuff. I mean, she would just pull out the knives but you're a kid. And Mommy, can you please help Kenny? He's in his room and he's got a blanket over his head, and he was like 7. And he's talking to himself and he's saying he's rocking. Mommy, can you please help him? He's rocking. I think he hurts, and she'd be like, Mary, just leave him alone. You're bothering him. That's why he's in his room with the blanket over his head.
Wow.
It's your fault. Be nice to him and he'll get better. So then you try to be nice, and then you get more walked on and more controlled. And pretty soon adolescence comes, and then it gets violent. Yeah. And there's anger, and then it turned into he raped me. And it was terrible, because I thought, well, now my mom will help me. And I went to her, and she told, in the ER, she said I was a liar. I was a virgin, so I was bleeding. And she said I was a liar. You had sex with your boyfriend. I know you did. And she convinced the doctors to put me in a mental hospital.
Oh, my God. But, I mean...
that's the level.
What?
Like, she was willing to put me away in a mental hospital when I was like a sophomore in high school. You know what that does to you? Like, when you're... And again, you're in the hospital thinking... And I wrote it in the book, how... I shouldn't have said that. I egged him on. I told him he was ugly and to get away from me, and no woman would ever want him, and he raped me. It's my fault. It's my fault. Yeah. And so you get so tangled up with, like how you said, thinking you're the crazy one. I must be the crazy one, Yeah.
I'm just thinking, because this is not just one person and one abuser.
No.
I mean, this is more abusers basically helping each other. How can you, because I mean, I'm sorry, this is about your mom I'm talking about, you know. It's very strange for me to do that, but I mean,
The enablers.
Isn't yeah, how can you
But how can you justify that?
How?
Yeah, how can you justify acting that way?
Doesn't make sense.
No.
And that's the nature of, I think, of a narcissistic abuser, or that type of abuser, is there's always other players in the mix, kind of like what you were saying, Dana. There's always people that will enable it and make the other people that try to stand up to it act like they're crazy too. So then you don't just have the abuser, you have other people wanting to keep the peace, so then they just like allow it to happen, and then also like discourage you from speaking up about it.
Yeah,
it's
very twisted, and it begs the question, you know, are these people charmed by the abuser, and you know they will defend him and go through all the lengths, or are they abusive themselves as well? Because
they say a lot of times when you're supporting, like the therapy I've done in, you know, especially the recent years, says that if you're that much of a defender of a narcissist, you probably have narcissistic qualities yourself, or have developed them, because that's the only way you can survive. You know?
It's probably, it might be a defense, but still, you know, you're just doing the same thing basically.
And
Yeah.
Katie's brother, her older brother, thinks that my parents were terrified of my brother, like that he would kill them, you know, if they kicked him out or didn't give him money or whatever, that they would be dead. And so, and I never really thought of it that way, but maybe they were afraid of him, you know, or afraid of what he would do to society, not me.
It's possible, but I also think they were just more afraid of their image looking differently than or looking bad, you know, if it got out.
But at the same time though, how is it, this is again rational thinking on something that probably wasn't rational thinking, but how is it that it's okay to send your daughter to a mental hospital but not okay to send your son to one?
Doesn't make sense, does it?
Exactly.
It's infuriating.
It's the same scandal, like scandal or whatever.
Right.
It's not a scandal, but it was, right? So
my current therapist thinks it's because somehow they knew I could take it. Like I would somehow be okay. I would somehow forgive them, and I would somehow be okay. And I did. I mean, you know, forgive them. I came back into their lives when I was like 28, and I took care of them when they were sick. And
How long were you in the hospital for, though?
That was I think it was 3 weeks. And I, you know, my therapist, again, she convinces me that I was born strong, because I think, I've gotten so strong. And she's like, there's no way you weren't born strong, because you survived all of that, you know, because then I'm in the mental hospital and there's all these people around, and I'm like, well, might as well try to get to know some people. So before you know it, I was leading like little balloon tossing classes and trying to make everyone laugh, and, you know, kind of just trying to be the light, the happy, you know. And I guess they realized I didn't really belong there, you know. So they let me out. But then you get back to high school, and then it was different, because I would be walking down the hall and I could see people whispering.
Yeah, you were the girl that went to the mental
I was the girl that went to the mental hospital.
And in what, was that the 80s? No, that was the 70s or
80. That was like, I graduated in 82, so it was like, you know, almost 19.
Yeah, so mental health wasn't really a topic.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah.
They
were
were
stigmatized.
They were scared of me. So, but the worst part about this is that I just sprung it on Katie one day, because we had been getting close from January till October, end of October of 2015. And this is what I'm saying about no more secrets. When you start getting so close to somebody, you don't want to hold back anything. You know, and we're sitting out on my deck at home, and she was there, and a little bit of wine and whatever. And I just said, you know, your brother raped me. And it was multiple times. It didn't end after that, because I thought that I was the bad guy and I didn't want to be thrown out of my family. And she was 23 by then. But how horrible for her. to hear that about her father, that she already knew was abusive, and because he never did that to them.
Yeah, I was fortunate in that regard. And I did not react well to it. I immediately believed her, but I also felt disgusted because I was like, I came from him. And that's where my thoughts went anyway, because I was like, this is awful. I can't believe that my dad did this to his sister.
Yeah, some kind of guilt or feel
like shame. Yeah, that I came from.
Yeah,
and
oh my goodness.
But instantly, I was like, it made perfect sense that that he would have done that. Everything, all of his behavior towards her, there was a lot of anger towards her, and not really. I never really understood why, you know. And then Mary used to dress a little bit more baggy. Yeah, like wear like baggy clothes and everything, even though you were like in fitness and all that. And there was just pieces of the puzzle that just like clicked as soon as I heard that. And I'm like, this is horrible. This is the most twisted I thought our family is, and I thought our family was already pretty twisted, you know, like from all this. And so it was just kind of alarming for me, and took me a long time to come to terms with.
I bet.
Imagine.
Spawn. She wrote in the book, I'm the spawn of a monster.
Yeah.
And then you stopped talking to him permanently, and then he died.
Yeah. So this is all in Broken Neck. We wrote about it, and as far as the writing piece, when I asked Mary, I wrote my perspective of that moment. And I said, you do not have to put this in, but you can read it. And if you want to include it, this could work if we tell it from my perspective, because then I feel like it empathizes. The reader will empathize because you're reading from like my perspective of, I don't know how to describe it.
Well, you know, her first thing is that she, besides it making sense, it seems like whenever somebody hears things like this, they always like doubt the victim. They blame the victim.
But if you hear it from someone who believes her instantly, I feel like it would have a better effect.
It would help me, and not that, but you did, but you also expressed that, you know, that makes sense. She said the first thing she said is, "I'm really sorry that happened to you, but I need to get out of here. I'm disgusted." And she had to leave and scream in her car and just bawl and scream. And then she moved to downtown Chicago for at least a year and a half or something, just to get away from everything, including him. She didn't give her mom or her dad her address, and she wasn't intending on spending Christmas Day with him, because this was end of October, and then 2 months later that was that Christmas, and then you get up in the morning and you're feeling like, okay, I'm going to do something different for Christmas, but I'm not going to see my parents. And then you get the call that they found him dead. And you're like, oh, you know.
And now every Christmas is about him.
Yeah. Thanks.
Well, okay. I'm just going to tell you, because at first I was like, shit, now he would ruin every holiday. No matter what.
There you go. There.
But then
it actually is about him.
My husband, who is just like this great man, he's like, are you kidding me? That was the best fucking Christmas I've ever had. He's like, thank you for the gift of dying. I mean, he was he's like, he didn't ruin it. He made every Christmas great from now on.
A celebration.
Good point.
Yeah.
This is so intricate, the story that you're telling of the perspectives overlapping. I think I realize when I read your blogs that, Katie, you are in the world of writing or journalism somehow. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I work full-time outside of this.
Okay. Well, I mean, one thing is writing it's one thing to write an actual book, but how do you find a publisher, or how do you find help in molding this story? Did you do this all on your own, or were there people guiding you and giving you tips on how to do this?
We definitely had a lot of help with this.
We had people give us advice
and critiques because I think that's a big part of writing, is that you have to have thick skin, because people are going to reject it in some form, and it's just going to happen. Like, there's no way around it. So then we had author friends, we gave it to them to look at,
acquaintances.
And they kind of critiqued it a little bit, and we took those critiques and tried to make our story better. And
you even took a class.
I took a class on all of that, like editing and writing query letters and all that stuff. So,
but I'd have to say we really wrote it, like, meaning we had no idea what we were doing, and we just sat down and we started putting stuff on paper, and it was awful. I mean, it didn't make any sense.
It was a trial and error process.
And then we would revise it and start over, and we just kept putting it on paper until it molded itself, and we kind of learned to be writers together. I mean, she was always a good writer prior to that, and I would write some,
but I had a lot to learn.
Yeah,
I had a lot to learn.
And what's nice is having a co-author, because we would motivate each other. Because there's times when you're just like, ugh, I don't even want to do this anymore, you know. As far as a publisher goes, we decided that, well, she wanted to try the traditional route, but what I was told was that the traditional publishers now you can't get a literary agent that's going to stick their neck out and not take like $10,000 up front, you know, because it used to be that maybe they would bank on you and say, I think you're going to be a successful author, so I'll take percentages of the book later. But now it
also has a lot to do with big followings, and we did not have a big like social following at the time.
Okay.
So what it was recommended to self-publish, you know, just pay an organization rather than pay a literary agent and wait for years when we wanted the story out. We paid a self-publisher, but then the next time you can go to a traditional publisher because you have a following and you've got
because you already have the first book.
Yeah.
I see.
And it's also important to have, like, with a story this emotional and we needed to have as much control over it as possible, because this is a very delicate topic, and I think we wanted to just tell our story our way and make it as good as we could and get it out there that way. So that was all part of the decision-making process of doing the self-publishing route, and it ended up being a positive experience, I think.
Exactly. And we really got most of our advice on how to show, don't tell. Don't just tell your story. This happened, this happened, this happened. Get the reader into the moment with you.
Right.
I see,
and say it. And then we got help on editing, but we didn't get help on content. You know, we wanted to put in what we wanted to put in. And it wasn't like, you know, maybe a traditional publisher would be like, oh, no, don't put this in because that's controversial or that won't sell or whatever.
Yeah, they would edit it probably. And
I was like, because if I want to tell my story, I'm going to tell it the way I need to, you know.
So it's basically like independent artists nowadays. You know, we release our music also through like a distributor, and there are certain rules of like the quality gets tested of a song, for example, but not the content, you know.
Okay, yeah,
that's good.
That's a good analogy. Yeah.
It was an independent publisher. I mean, was it like a website where you can say, okay, this is a book, I want to publish it here, or does it then also go into print? Because you have a printed copy, so I'm guessing it's not only online.
It was actually a company, you know, that is called Gatekeeper Publishing, and it had high reviews, and we just sent our book and paid them to publish it. And I do have to say that we had a person that was working on our book only, and it was really, really neat because she said, I just want you to know I've been working in this industry a really long time, and your story is really compelling, and bravo for you. And I was like, wow, that was before it was even published, you know. And I was like, oh, you know, maybe we do have something to say. You know?
It did feel good to finally get it out and have it be liked like for people to actually think it was good was such an accomplishment, like that we're like, oh wow, we can actually write.
We can write. One of her friends, he didn't want to put it down, so he was cutting his hair while reading.
Yeah. My fiance read it all in one sitting. I mean, all of the feedback that we got and all the reviews that we got, even from like strangers and stuff, were like, "Oh, this was a good book."
Because it's a psychological thriller as well, because that's Ken.
Yeah. And what about the marketing? So the marketing of it is also then you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, although we're now, because of our people that help us with the podcast, we're starting to talk about our book more again, like kind of a re-market, a relaunch.
Yeah. And the talks that we did were all part of the marketing. So we would always try to set up more talks and try to get it in front of more people. We would like reach out for more reviews of people that did read it. And I was running the socials at the time, so I was trying to like get us have more of an audience there and everything. So it was all our own hand and all learning as we were going, pretty much.
Yeah. Oh, I see we've lost Micah. Oh no.
I saw her looking at like in the corner, like maybe was her battery going to run out or something,
Yeah, I think so. But well, on that note, maybe we should I don't know. Well, I'm live on TikTok on the phone, so I don't really know what's going on. I can have a look.
Yeah, you can't even get a text from her because you're using your phone for TikTok.
She says she's having.
Yeah, she can't hear us anymore, so she was having some trouble.
Oh.
Okay,
Oh,
well,
no.
yes.
So let's start over.
Let's start over.
All again.
Start over. All right. Well, I guess that's going to be all for today. So thank you very much for joining Unboxing Women and telling your story. So thank you, everybody, for listening.
And
thanks for having us on.
The AlbrechtAuthors.com is the hub to go to for the podcast and for the book. And just to contact us and different links in our blogs and stuff like that. So just the AlbrechtAuthors.com.
Oh, Micah is back. Here we are. Hi.
Oh, we missed you.
We lost you.
For some reason, I couldn't hear you guys anymore, and then I was kicked out.
All right. Well, we're glad you're back. We were just saying where we could reach Katie and Mary. So it's the AlbrechtAuthors.com, you say?
Yes.
Correct.
Yep.
All right. And you also have a TikTok. I didn't even know that. So they have a TikTok.
And we're streaming live on it right now. Yeah.
and we're just doing it with you, right, Dana?
I'm co-host on the live. It's my first live because I just hit 1,000 followers. So thank you. That's amazing.
That's a Katie.
That's a me. Happy to be your 1,000th.
No, it was fun. It's a lot of fun to talk to you again, Dana, and to meet you, Micah. Dana, and I feel like Dana and we hit it off with Dana right away just because she's so real and cool. Oh, she's like, look at me. Yeah. I have warrior paint on my face. Clearly, I have something I want to say.
Obviously, yes.
But yeah, you guys have a good vibe. I like what you guys are doing with your show and everything. So I'm glad that we got a chance to speak on it. And it's always fun to be able to talk about the creative process of the book. Because we don't really talk about it that much anymore. So it's been a good time discussing it again.
Yeah. That's great. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. So, Micah, I don't know if you want to do the outro then.
Oh, right. Let's do it then. Okay. So, now that you've got me back, you're going to have me for a couple of seconds more. That's all for today. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Unboxing Women, and thank you, Mary and Casey, for coming on our show. We've had an absolute blast, if it wasn't apparent before. If you want to connect with them, we just said where to find them, but you'll find it in the show notes below as well. And if you've ever had an experience you'd like to share with us, send us a DM or tag us in your post with #suchabitch, or send us an email at suchabitch@unboxingwomen.com. Don't forget to drop us a like wherever you're listening and subscribe to the podcast. My name is Micah Rose and I've been chatting with Dana Rex. This is a weekly show, so make sure to tune back in next week, same time, same place. Thank you again, Katie and Mary. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.